Anakin Skywalker's fall to the dark side wasn't just caused by Chancellor Palpatine's offer to teach him the way to prevent death. Although that temptation likely played the largest role, Skywalker's own misgivings about the Jedi and their inability to break away from the control of the Senate was an equally important factor. In fact, early in his time at the Jedi Order, just a few years after Obi-Wan Kenobi took young Skywalker under his wing, Anakin tried to quit. He was so serious about leaving that he even gave his new blue lightsaber to Obi-Wan, a sign that he was willing to leave it all behind. What made Anakin so eager to abandon the temple and go his own way? Unfortunately, like any other tragic moment in young Skywalker's life, this decision was prompted by the dark side and Palpatine's expert manipulation. On a seemingly regular trip to the Jedi Temple, Palpatine was escorted around the grounds by Masters Obi-Wan Kenobi and Mace Windu. After taking familiar trips to the library and gardens, the Chancellor was shown to a small dueling hall where Padawans trained in the different forms of lightsaber combat against each other. As the older men watched from a balcony above, young Anakin slashed and hacked at a hollow-projected fighting matrix based on Darth Maul, defeating it far more easily than his master, Obi-Wan, did years prior. After confirming that Skywalker was just as promising in the Force as everyone expected him to be, Palpatine was even more delighted to see what happens next. A group of fellow Padawans who watched Anakin's masterful duel against the training droid from the sidelines started to tease the Tatooine native. Skywalker, of course, was used to harsh, barbed words of other students in the Order, but they were jealous of Anakin's natural abilities in the Force, a fact that Skywalker tried to remember whenever he was tempted to exact revenge against them. But there was one line that he hated hearing, jokes about his time enslaved in Mos Espa. As the boys snickered amongst themselves and alluded to the fact that Anakin was nothing more than a slave boy, Skywalker cracked. He turned two humming lightsabers against his fellow Jedi, and for a second, even Anakin wasn't sure what he would do. The thought of killing his classmates must have flashed across his mind, that much is sure. But the more interesting question is, how hard was it for Anakin to ignore that urge and put his lightsaber away? The weight of his master's gaze weighed heavy on Anakin, and after coming to his senses, he cracked a joke and withdrew his blade. But Palpatine had seen enough. Not only was Anakin powerful in the Force, but the rage built by all those years of suffering on Tatooine was only ever a single sentence away from being unleashed. In that moment, Palpatine decided that the time to groom Anakin as his apprentice had come. The Chancellor quickly turned to Mace Windu and asked to see Skywalker privately. "It seems young Skywalker's training is far from complete. Send him to me. I may be able to help. It may not look like it, but I was once his age, and I feel a special connection to the boy after his assistance with the Naboo blockade some years ago." It was a strange request, and Master Windu wisely thought that it was too inappropriate to approve. In a quick reply, Mace rejected Palpatine's offer. "Thank you, Chancellor, but I'm sure Obi-Wan has it well in hand," Windu said simply. But then the Chancellor used his authority as the leader of the Senate to force Windu into setting up the private meeting. "Why, young Skywalker is a Jedi, is he not? The Jedi are under the Senate's jurisdiction, and as I am the Chancellor of the Senate," Palpatine said as his voice trailed off, and he allowed Windu to fill in the gaps. And a few days later, Palpatine had Skywalker on his own for the very first time. In that initial meeting, Darth Sidious laid the groundwork for Anakin's final fall to the dark side. Nearly 10 years later, Palpatine escorted Anakin into the lower levels of Coruscant, into the crime-ridden bars and clubs that only hosted the most vile parasites that lived on the capital. As they sat in the smoke-filled den, Palpatine carefully played the part of a humble servant of the Republic. He spoke as if he was a weak old man about the corruption of the Senate and how he wished someone would be strong enough to fix it all. Of course, Palpatine was simply stoking Anakin's own foolish concepts of bravery and heroism. The Sith Lord wanted to see how much prodding it would take to make Skywalker forget his Jedi training and simply rely on his own emotions to guide him. In the end, Palpatine discovered that not only was Anakin sympathetic to his cause, but Skywalker, even as a young Padawan, was willing to use his Force powers to serve Palpatine. At one point, Palps pointed out that one of the patrons of the bar was actually a celebrated galactic senator. Sidious pretended to lament the fact that the senator was here, in this grimy bar, gambling in an illegal game. Keen to prove himself to Palpatine, Anakin used the Force to cause the senator to lose all of his money, which was a perfect first step towards the dark side in Palpatine's mind. After that, the Chancellor escorted Skywalker back to the surface and the pair separated. But not long after their meeting, Anakin met privately with his master Obi-Wan Kenobi and handed his elder his lightsaber. Skywalker wanted to quit the Order. Although he didn't tell his master the real reasons, Anakin's trip to the lower levels of Coruscant and his experience with the corrupt Republic senators was more than reason enough. After all, how could Anakin knowingly serve the Jedi Order when the Jedi themselves were commanded by such immoral men? This is another reason why I think Anakin would have been the perfect student to Qui-Gon Jinn, who was a student to Count Dooku, and the three of them felt that the Jedi Order had lost their way. They were following too far into politics and to the Republic. They were disillusioned. They weren't really trusting the Force anymore, rather they were just following politics. They were pawns at this point, and Palpatine played them just as that. I think a funny show would be Palpatine and young Anakin just kind of like going around the galaxy. I'd love to turn that into an animation someday, maybe in another form of Once Upon a Theory. But until then, I'll see you guys in the next episode, and I hope you all have a great day. Leave a like here if you enjoyed the video, find me on Spotify, and I'll see you all very soon. Until then, the Force will be with you always.